A Take Charge Girl blazes a trail to Congress. The story of Jeannette Rankin. Written by Gretchen Woelfle. Illustrated by Rebecca Gibbon. Montana, the big sky state, where the mountains rise up to the sky and the plains stretch on forever. Jeannette Rankin rode the horses through those mountains and camped under that big sky. One day a horse came galloping into the Rankins' ranch yard. Its shoulder bled from an ugly gash. Jeannette sprang into action, yelling to the ranch hands to hold the horse steady. She used hot water to clean the wound, then ice to freeze it. Finally, she sewed up the gash with needle and thread. Jeannette Rankin was a take-charge girl. At home in Missoula, she helped care for her younger brother and 4 younger sisters. She rolled up her sleeves to cook for them, sew their clothes, and call the doctor when they were ill. Most girls in 1900 planned to marry and raise children, but Jeannette wanted a different life. She went to college and studied mountain snails, but she couldn't see a future there. She taught school. That didn't suit her. She tried sewing dresses and making hats. That wasn't it either. In 1907, when she was 27, Jeannette traveled to San Francisco. There, she saw ragged children playing in the streets. They lived in crowded, unhealthy tenements. Their parents worked long hours in dangerous factories. Could she do something to help? The Telegraph Hill Neighborhood Center offered childcare for babies, after-school clubs for girls and boys, English and citizenship classes for immigrants, a health clinic, garden, playground, and library. 2 women in charge of it all. Women in charge. Jeannette liked that. She rolled up her sleeves again to help for a few days and stayed for 4 months. She took care of the young children and taught them the alphabet. That gave her a big idea. She would become a social worker and help improve the lives of poor children and their families. Jeannette moved to New York City to study social work. Mornings, she attended college classes. Afternoons, she helped women find jobs in childcare. Every day, she saw dreadful hardships. A poor mother abandoned by her husband brought her 3 small children to Jeannette. She couldn't care for them all, so she asked Jeannette to take her 3-year-old boy to an orphanage. It broke Jeannette's heart to send this bright little boy away. She realized that social workers alone couldn't end such suffering, but who could? Lawmakers elected to Congress and state assemblies had that power. They could pass laws to improve housing conditions, healthcare, and social services for families and children. But lawmakers were men who didn't seem to care about such issues, and only men could vote to elect lawmakers. I saw that if we were to have decent laws for children, Jeannette said, women would have to vote. Now that was a bigger idea. In 1910, she threw herself into the campaign for women's suffrage, the right to vote. This movement had been around for more than 50 years, and a few Western states had already granted women the vote. But suffragists wanted every American woman to have that right. Who led the suffrage movement? Women. For 4 years, Jeannette crisscrossed the country from New York to California to Florida and back again. She gave thousands of speeches. She spoke at town halls and factory gates, movie theaters, and dance halls. She organized women's groups to keep talking, printing leaflets, and leading meetings with one message: give us the vote. Many men and some women hated the idea. They thought women weren't smart enough or tough enough to enter the gritty world of politics. They thought women should stay home and mind the children. Jeannette had an answer for them. It's a woman's place to make a home, but she can't make it if she has no say in the community conditions. It's beautiful and right that a woman should nurse her sick children through typhoid fever, but it's also beautiful and right that she should vote for sanitary measures to prevent that typhoid from spreading. One night, an angry lawmaker hurled a glass of water at Jeannette. She hurled an insult right back, declaring that women would soon vote him out of office. In 1914, Montana men agreed to hold a vote on women's suffrage. Jeannette went home to take charge. She traveled 6,000 miles through the mountains and across the plains, giving speeches all along the way. She led a mile-long parade at the state fair. Children joined the march, wearing hat bands declaring, "I want my mother to vote." Jeannette wrote a letter to every voter in Montana. Women in our organization are from all walks of life. We unite on one point. We want to vote. November 1914. Victory! Jeannette and all Montana women could finally vote for a congressman who would pass bills to help families and children. But what if Montana elected a congresswoman? That was Jeannette's biggest idea yet. She threw a party and announced she would run for Congress. She expected rousing cheers, but she only heard complaints. Jeannette had seen what women could do. It was time they entered the power center of politics, the U.S. Congress. Jeannette was just the person to lead the charge. She was the most famous woman in Montana. She had given thousands of speeches. She knew how to organize people. Her brother managed her campaign. Her sisters joined Jeannette Rankin clubs. They sent postcards to every woman in the state. More speeches, more parades. What did Jeannette pledge to do in Congress? Sponsor a constitutional amendment to give women the vote in every state. Sponsor bills to improve labor conditions, housing, and health care for families. On Tuesday, November 7th, 1916, Jeannette voted for the first time for herself. Back at home, she paced the floor. Would men vote for a woman? Would women vote for a woman? Or vote at all? The day ended, the polls closed, and the ballot count began. Jeannette still paced. At 1 o'clock in the morning, she called the local newspaper. Was Jeannette Rankin winning? No, she was losing. Jeannette collapsed into bed. On Wednesday, the newspaper announced that she had lost. She was crushed until the phone rang and her brother announced that it wasn't over yet. Votes were still coming in from the countryside and small towns. Friends came by. Jeannette put on a brave face. Wednesday, Thursday passed. Was her biggest idea too big? Finally, on Friday, all the votes were counted, and Jeannette Rankin became the first congresswoman ever. Rivers of mail flooded in. Rowdy reporters rushed to Montana and demanded a speech. An auto company offered her a new car. A toothpaste company promised her $5,000 to smile in their ads. Not a chance. When she finally spoke, she lambasted congressmen who had voted to spend $300,000 to study food for hogs and only $30,000 to study the needs of children. She said, if the hogs of the nation are 10 times more important than the children, it is high time that women should make their influence felt. On April 2nd, 1917, Jeannette Rankin strode into the Capitol in Washington, D.C. to take her seat in the House of Representatives. Her proud family watched from the visitors' gallery. Congressmen rushed to shake her hand. She smiled at each one, but she wasn't there for smiles and handshakes. She had work to do. I may be the first woman member of Congress, but I won't be the last, she declared. And she was right.